Have you ever noticed how quickly animals move on from pain? Two birds may fight fiercely over food, feathers flying everywhere, only to continue their lives a few minutes later as if nothing had happened. A deer escapes a predator, its heart racing with fear, but once the danger has passed, it returns to grazing. Nature seems to have given animals a remarkable ability to let go. Human beings are different. One harsh comment can echo in our minds for years. A failed relationship can haunt us long after it ends. We replay conversations, imagine different outcomes, and worry about problems that haven't even happened yet. Sometimes it feels as though we're carrying invisible weights that no one else can see. The Norwegian philosopher Peter Wessel Zapffe believed this wasn't simply bad luck or weakness. He argued that the greatest source of human suffering isn't the world itself, but the extraordinary mind we've been given. Unlike other creatures, we possess a level of consciousness so advanced that we can question everything: our past, our future, our purpose, and even our own existence. The very ability that allows us to create art, science, and civilization also forces us to confront fears that most animals never experience. Perhaps the greatest gift evolution ever gave us also became its greatest mistake. Imagine waking up one morning and suddenly seeing reality without any comforting illusions. You become aware that everyone you love will one day disappear. Your own life has an expiration date. Time keeps moving whether you're ready or not. And the universe continues without caring about your hopes, your fears, or your dreams. For Zapffe, this is the hidden burden of being human. Animals fear immediate danger. They run when chased, fight when threatened, and rest when they are safe. Their fear serves a purpose and then fades away. Human beings, however, possess a different kind of fear. We don't just fear death. We fear knowing that death is inevitable. We don't just experience pain. We imagine future pain long before it arrives. We mourn losses that haven't happened yet and replay old wounds long after they've healed. According to Zapffe, our consciousness acts like a double-edged sword. It allows us to understand beauty, love, and meaning more deeply than any other creature. But it also exposes us to anxiety, regret, loneliness, and the terrifying realization that many of life's biggest questions may never have satisfying answers. The more clearly we see reality, the harder it becomes to carry the weight of that knowledge. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable silence can be? Imagine sitting alone in a room with no phone, no music, no television, nothing to distract you. At first, it might feel peaceful, but after a while, your mind starts to wander. Old memories return. Regrets you thought you'd forgotten suddenly reappear. Questions you've been avoiding quietly begin asking for your attention. Peter Wessel Zapffe believed this is why we spend so much of our lives staying busy. We tell ourselves we're chasing success, building a career, earning more money, or constantly searching for new experiences. And while those things certainly matter, Zapffe suggested there may be another reason hiding beneath the surface. Perhaps we aren't always running towards something. Perhaps we're running away. Away from loneliness, away from uncertainty, away from the uncomfortable feeling of sitting face to face with our own thoughts. That's why we reach for our phones without even realizing it. Why we keep ourselves busy from morning until night. Why we feel strangely anxious whenever life slows down. The modern world offers endless distractions. And maybe that's exactly why we rarely stop to ask ourselves the hardest questions. Not because we don't want answers, but because we're afraid of what we might discover if everything suddenly became quiet. Zapffe believed that human beings have quietly developed 4 ways of protecting themselves from the weight of consciousness. Most of the time, we don't even realize we're doing it. The first is isolation. We simply push painful thoughts out of our minds. We avoid thinking about death, illness, or the uncertainty of life, pretending these things belong to someone else's story. The second is anchoring. We hold tightly to things that make the world feel stable: our family, our beliefs, our traditions, our career, or even the idea that everything happens for a reason. These become emotional anchors that keep us from drifting into existential chaos. The third is distraction, perhaps the most familiar escape today. We fill every empty moment with work, entertainment, social media, shopping, or endless goals. As long as we're moving, we don't have to face ourselves. And finally, there is sublimation, the rarest and perhaps the most beautiful response. Instead of running from suffering, Some people transform it into something meaningful. They write books, compose music, paint, create films, or tell stories that allow pain to become art. According to Zapffe, these four strategies don't remove suffering. They simply make it bearable, long enough for us to keep living. The difficult truth, according to Zapffe, is that none of these coping mechanisms actually solve the problem. Distractions eventually end. Beliefs are challenged. The people we lean on grow old, leave, or pass away. Even the strongest routines can collapse overnight. For a while, everything may seem fine. You're busy with work, surrounded by friends, making plans for the future. Life feels full of direction. But then something unexpected happens. A serious illness, the end of a relationship, the loss of someone you love, or perhaps nothing dramatic happens at all. One quiet evening, with nowhere to go and nothing demanding your attention, your thoughts begin to return. The questions you buried never really disappeared. They were simply waiting. Zapffe believed this is why so many people experience an existential crisis at some point in their lives. It's not because life suddenly became more painful. It's because the defenses that once protected them stopped working. His point wasn't that distractions are useless. They help us keep going. They give us moments of joy, purpose, and connection. But if we're honest with ourselves, they are more like a bandage than a cure. The wound remains underneath, quietly reminding us that some questions cannot be ignored forever. After examining the human condition, Zapffe arrived at a conclusion that many people still consider deeply disturbing. If consciousness is the source of our greatest suffering, and if suffering can never truly be overcome, then perhaps the kindest thing humanity could do would be to stop creating more human beings. He called this vision the last Messiah. In his essay, he imagined a final messenger who tells humanity that the greatest act of compassion is not to continue the cycle of suffering. Rather than passing the burden of existence to future generations, we should allow the story of humanity to end peacefully. It's an idea that challenges almost every instinct we have. Most of us naturally believe that life is worth preserving, that hope always exists, and that tomorrow can be better than today. Zapffe wasn't trying to shock people for the sake of it. He simply followed his own philosophy to its most logical and most unsettling conclusion, whether we agree with him or not. His argument forces us to ask an uncomfortable question. If life contains unavoidable suffering, what, exactly, makes it worth continuing? That question has echoed through philosophy for centuries, and it still has no single answer. Fortunately, Zapffe is not the only philosopher who has wrestled with the problem of suffering. Many others looked at the very same reality and reached remarkably different conclusions. The Buddha agreed that suffering is an unavoidable part of life, but he believed it could be transformed through understanding and inner awakening. The Stoics accepted that we cannot control everything that happens to us, yet insisted we can always choose how we respond. Taoist thinkers suggested that much of our pain comes from resisting life instead of flowing with it. Epicurus argued that happiness isn't found in endless ambition, but in simplicity, friendship, and learning to want less. Perhaps this is the most valuable lesson we can take from Zapffe. He reminds us not to underestimate the weight of human consciousness. He forces us to acknowledge the questions we've spent our lives avoiding. But what we do with those questions, that is still our choice. Maybe there is no perfect escape from suffering. Maybe there never will be. Yet the search for meaning, beauty, love, and wisdom may be precisely what makes our fragile existence worth living. And perhaps that is where philosophy truly begins, not by giving us all the answers, but by teaching us how to live with the questions